And in that moment where we got those Photoshop photographs of Veldskoen shoes on our phones, bang, lightning goes off and we actually start a business. In the moment of desperation, and we were desperate, we built Veldskoen because it gave us hope. It made us feel good to talk about it to each other. It felt like it could be the thing that makes this other terrible thing better.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of your Brains Coach podcast. My name is Angela Sharina. I'm your host, I'm your Brains Coach, and it is my job here to bring to you all the best, recent, cutting-edge, most useful and interesting brain body tools so you could get out there, take better control of your body, of your brain, of your emotions, of thoughts, and most importantly, actions. So you take the right action consistently and build the life and the business you want. Today, guys, I'm super excited to have such an inspiring and motivating guest on our podcast. All the way from Cape Town, South Africa, we have Nick Dreyer, the co-founder of Veldskoen Shoes, the soul of South Africa. By the way, check them out. Amazing brand built out of history and into the modern global business success. The business started in 2016, now almost 10 years, went through pandemic and still grew, and was an official footwear of Olympic team of South Africa in Olympic Games. It all started with a coincidence. So while Nick and his co-founder Ross were traveling along the road and decided that they wanted to pursue this crazy idea that made sense. And they built it into success from 2 square meter office space in Cape Town to now exporting to 32 countries, maybe even more now that we're speaking, making it into this global success with such an amazing story. But today on this podcast, we're not going to be talking much about business strategies, although actually we will, because we're going to talk about the culture, the mindset, what it actually took from a human perspective, from a mindset perspective, to go through all these trials and errors and failures and self-doubts and many days without wins to transform all of that into the success of Veldskoen Shoes that it is today. We're going to talk about how to maintain high confidence when you go from one failure to another, and how to eliminate that self-doubt that often stops us from taking action, consistent action needed to succeed. We're going to talk about unconventional stress management tips and mindset that help Nick and his co-founder to not just build success, build a great business, but also build a happy family life, a life that a lot of us entrepreneurs, founders aspire to have. We're going to talk about culture building and confidence building and how to stay motivated and focused and keep your anxieties low, and how sometimes for managing your stress levels, the best thing you need to do is to wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning and get through all the emails that you have been neglecting. A lot of interesting stories, advice, and tips from someone who realized what he wanted to do, what Nick wanted to do, why building Veldskoen Shoes was important, who developed all the right tools and strategies to manage himself, to manage his mindset, his life, and to build culture and to build an amazing life. So, well, let me stop talking, and without further ado, please enjoy this beautiful, insightful, and inspiring conversation with Nick. Learn, start, keep building until success. And also, at the end of this podcast, Nick encourages all of us entrepreneurs to reach out to him personally and also to each other, to ask for advice, ask for tips, to stop needless suffering and instead learn from each other to keep building and to succeed. So please enjoy. Nick Dreyer, thank you so much for coming to Your Brains Coach podcast as a guest and being on our special series dedicated to founders' mindset, helping me to unpack a lot of struggles that founders are going through while trying to build their dream, their vision, something they're passionate about. So thank you so much for being here today.
It's a huge pleasure, and it's an important subject. So it's wonderful to get the chance to talk about it.
Yes, I also know and believe it's a very important subject, and also a subject that not talk about enough, I believe. Like, we all talk about the business side and how you build this, or how you got investors, how you got this off the ground, this offer, the sales, but we don't often talk about what was happening inside of you and in your life and how you dealt with that. So your vision had a chance to succeed.
Yes, it's I've heard it described, entrepreneurship, as a complete and total assault on your entire being. Whether that be physical, mental, health, family, personal, business, everything. And you've got to be prepared for it. It's something that has to be navigated. You can't wing it.
Yeah. And I, can't wait to actually jump into that. But maybe before, let's talk a little bit about the beginnings.
Yes.
Where you started, and hopefully we will get to the health aspects and the struggles and everything that you had to go through. On your website, I read somewhere in your biography that you consider yourself a late starter.
Yes.
Right? But I also have a different take on that. Like, yes, you started Veldskoen when you were, I think, 37, right? But before that, you did a lot of things leading to that, right? Yeah. And late starter. What I would say, you probably didn't start late. You just started later your successful story. But before that, you had to go through a lot of experiences to get to that success, right? Can you tell listeners about what you did before you started Veldskoen that succeeded?
Sure. I studied hospitality management. So I went into the hotel trade, which I worked in London, and I came back, and that's a tough industry, right? Like long hours, dealing with people. And I came back to South Africa and I worked at the Bay Hotel, and then I took a duty manager's job at this fabulous place called Ellerman House. And I'd never heard of it before. I showed up. Turns out it was owned by Paul Harris, who's the founder of First Rand. And I ended up working for Paul for about 15 years. In and out of, obviously, the hotel, but also working in other businesses that he had interests in. So I worked in the art world at the great dealer Everard Read. I was involved with a tourism hospitality business in Africa called Great Plains Conservation. And I'd seen business, and I'd seen a number of businesses up close, and I was relatively successful doing that. And I loved it. I really did enjoy it. Then interestingly enough, it was caused by my father's death. My dad died when I was 36. And I decided to then become an entrepreneur. Not to become an entrepreneur, but I felt I'd worked for this great mentor of mine for so long, and I felt I had something in me. I just didn't know what it was. And so I resigned from everything without a plan, and then proceeded to start building a number of businesses that I felt could work. But having come off the highs and the successes of having worked with Paul for so many years, I then immediately started failing. And all the businesses that I started failed very quickly. So
you call them spectacular failures, I think, in one of your blog posts, right? So what were some of the things that you started?
I think it depends on how you quantify what a great failure is, right? So I think the best failure is probably my art advisory business called Auriti. It was so bad that it never even started. So
What do you mean?
I couldn't actually generate an invoice.
Okay.
Which meant nobody's willing to pay me for the
But
service.
you started a company, right?
But I started a business. I started a company. I was like living through my savings. Never actually managed to bill somebody. And, so the learning number one was you don't have a business until you're sending invoices.
Yeah.
Or converting invoices that you've sent. Then the second business, which was also spectacular, this time on a much greater scale, we had an events business. To be fair, it was a fun business. We brought some really great exhibitions to South Africa. And then it went well for a period of time. And then a lot of stuff happened in South Africa that culminated in that business not working, but it went very difficult very quickly because we were playing in a much bigger field in terms of revenue, and then when it doesn't work, the hole is much bigger than you could possibly imagine. So that one failed. And then tried a couple of other tiny things, also failures. But yeah, it was in that window of about 18, 20 months when the thing starts.
Yeah. And what helped you to preserve that belief that eventually you'll succeed? What helped you to keep trying instead of, let's say, thinking about finding another job or just taking a safer way, I guess, out?
Super interesting, because I think I'd worked as an employee for a long time.
Yeah.
Almost 2 decades. And I really enjoyed the idea and actually being on my own, the challenge of actually trying to look after me and my family by just the sheer output of whatever my endeavor was. And I think that motivated me because I enjoyed the freedom of being able to make my decisions, even if they were bad ones. But it kept me going. I've always been a naturally confident person, I think, and I felt like I could do something. Just the right thing had to come along. Okay.
And do you have any ideas or thoughts about where this confidence came from? Because a lot of entrepreneurs, founders I talk to, they actually struggle a lot with confidence, and they feel like that doesn't allow them to pursue certain opportunities or to really, I guess, burn the boats and to work full time with all of your attention and passion on that thing that might not even work. Nobody has guarantees. Like, do you know where that confidence comes from?
My mom and dad, I think it starts early, instilled in me a confidence that I could do well in life, and that if you apply yourself, good things can happen. I was an only child, so I spent a lot of time alone, but I didn't ever have anyone go, "You're amazing." It wasn't that type of confidence. The confidence was quiet. When I applied myself and I put some work into something, it would normally have an output that was positive. And that happened from when I was young. I wasn't the smartest scholar, but I knew that if I studied, I would do okay. And then I think working with Paul in a high performance space, which is also highly visible, a hotel with amazing people and wonderful staff and the best of the best team, it gives you a natural confidence. I was also very lucky to have traveled during that time. So I think being a little bit more worldly helps a lot if you understand the world a little bit better. Yeah. And I think that all contributed to me having a degree of confidence. I hope it doesn't, and it might at some point present differently, maybe even as arrogant or hubris, but we try, of course, as we all do, to try to keep that in check. But I'm naturally confident. I'm self-certain of myself.
Yeah, I guess what I'm hearing is you're confident in your ability to figure things out, and work hard and commit to something and show up for something. And from your experience, hard work pays off, right?
It's just a very simple equation. The more you put in, the more you're going to get out. The less you put in, the less comes out. It's just, if you work hard, I've always felt that. If you practice, I studied music when I was younger. If you practice 8 hours a day, you'll be proficient. If you read 50 books, you'll get smarter. If you sit down behind your computer for 4 hours and focus on your emails, you'll get them done. But you've got to do the work.
Yeah. I like to say these days, outwork your self-doubt. Like if you have doubts or feel like your confidence is low at the moment, just go and work on something and apply yourself and see results. And that usually helps. Yeah. So, but did you ever struggle with self-doubts while going through, failures in other pursuits and building Veldskoen? Do you ever struggle with self-doubts?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what do you do when you do?
I think you try and shorten the amount of time that you take to feel sorry for yourself.
And so let's say here comes a day and you don't feel especially confident about the thing. How would you start that day, or what would you do? Do you talk to yourself in a specific way or try to jump into action?
Yeah, it's a great question, because the trick is, I suppose, the temptation is to try to find tools to make that part of your life easier. But what I've always felt is, I think time to consider the situation you find yourself in is very important. So a little bit of isolation, I think, is a good thing, where you actually have the time without distraction to process whatever it is you need to process. So go for a 45-minute walk, or sit in a car on your own and just center your brain, quieten down the space, and just consider what it is you're going through. And I think often we're not feeling great, or there's self-doubt, but at the same time you've got so much coming at you that you don't really recognize that it's happening. And it just presents as some form of negativity in your space. Yeah. I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling like lackluster, or I lose confidence. What I felt worked really well for me is just to when I'm feeling off, take a moment to think about it. And there's many tools you can use. There's many, but for me, it's just to be a little bit self-aware for a short period of time, and just try and take stock of what may or may not be causing this, and then pushing on from there.
Addressing that, I guess, right? Instead of just feeling that something is off and not understanding what it is and trying to just push.
Yeah. And look, sometimes it's hard to snap out of it. Don't get me wrong. You can go weeks without a win. We talk about it in our business as entrepreneurs, Ross and my co-founder, Ross and myself, and it really helps to have someone that you're close to in the business. But we talk about wins. Yeah. And we'll go through weeks where we're like, man, we just need a win, man. Like, I need a W in the W column. Because you've been dealing with global issues, or you're dealing with cash flow, you're dealing with staff, whatever. And you catch yourself after about 10 days going, God, I could really do with a win. Just to lift my spirits a little bit. And then it comes.
It comes. So, what do you do when you don't have a win? And I don't know, it might not come. Do you
try and make one.
You try to make one.
You have to try and make one. You don't want to go too long.
I agree. Would you say you would try to maybe switch your focus and try to put more attention to the area where you can get a win, or maybe double down on things?
Or do something, look back and go, what has won before? And in the most binary terms in a shoe business, where did I find a new customer? Let me go through this process again. Let me see if I can't find a customer today. Let me see if I can't close a deal. Or it could be as easy as going, what is the next product we're going to do? Let's get into a room and be creative. Yeah. I've been staring at spreadsheets for 2 weeks. Can I just have some smart, creative people around me, and let's talk about what's the next shoe we're going to make? Yeah. So find something that just lifts you out of that fog. And then I'm not saying defocus and track down another lane completely, but it just helps to get something something other than Red Bull.
Speaking of Red Bull, a founder journey, entrepreneurial journey does take a lot of energy, and a lot of founders struggle with things like burnout, right? Work-life management, stress management. Do you have any tools that worked for you through your journey that helped you to, survive, keep going, and succeed?
Look, Ross and I, when we built the business, it's just interesting how we built the business, right? So we didn't go out and raise funds. We had no money. We were both failing at our businesses. We had no money. So we literally had to bootstrap it, and we just learned how to do absolutely everything ourselves. But we were in isolation. We didn't have funding. We didn't have a team. We didn't know how to do what we were doing. And so we just spent so much time learning on the job. And what I will say for tools to help you is when you're an entrepreneur, I think those sort of things play a part when you're maybe in your slightly mature phase of your business, or in your second business, or you're now stacking businesses. But when you're building something from day one, ground zero, the first 3 years, 4 years is just go. Just absolute go, go, go. Especially in our situation, we were not young. There was no alternative. So desperation played a huge effect. And I think, the definition of burnout is just a prolonged period of high stress.
Yeah.
Myself and Ross used to say, we're probably going to have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable for a long period of time. And we would remind ourselves that this was a game of survival, which really a startup is. You start today and you just have to hang in there for as long as you can. And somehow the universe gets it better and better. And you go from selling 1 shoe a day to 2 shoes a day to 5 shoes a day. And then your problems become bigger and bigger, but at the same time your business has grown and gets a bit more stable and all the rest of it. But the actual mental tools for the first 3 to 4 years, it didn't play a huge part in my journey because we were just in full-on survival mode and output.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing is being okay and understanding that in most cases it's going to be a lot of hard work, a lot of, just dedicating yourself fully to that pursuit, and it's being hard. And
you do need something to ground you.
Yeah.
And I think this is important. Also in our story, we're both very close to our families. So when you finish, even if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, it's just nice to be at home.
Yeah.
And to have a partner that is invested in your endeavor, whether that be financially or just through support. And we're both very, very lucky. We're very close to our family. And that's what we go back to. And it's also the motivating thing, right? I'm not doing this so that Nick Dreyer can do anything. I don't care. I really just want to build it for our families.
Okay.
So that we look after them.
A couple of questions I have from here. Family reminds me of this idea of work-life balance that a lot of founders also struggling with. Like, should I be looking at work-life balance? Should it be more, leveled, or it's okay to, be fully in my business? And how did it work also with you still have families, where you said they were supportive, right? But did you have any sort of rules about that balance? Like, this is the amount of time I dedicate to work, and this is when I must show up for my family and my life. Like, did you have any boundaries? That sort of.
In my life, not enough boundaries and not enough balance. And it's a constant reminder to find that and seek that and make rules. And we find ourselves having to do it all the time. And Freya, my wife, works in the business, and Ross's wife, Dricky, works in the business. So we're kind of building the business 24 hours a day. When it comes to the children, we have to focus on the children. Luckily, I've got young children, 3 boys under the age of 7, which means you don't have a choice but to focus on them. They just need you. And that's amazing for us. It's taxing, of course, because young children aren't a walk in the park. But our focus has to be on them, but we keep reminding ourselves. And if I'm completely honest about it, I don't think we do that great a job at it. We're happy, but there's lots of anxiety in the system. There's lots of tension in the system. There's lots of stress in the system. But it's a constant challenge to inject more of that balance.
So do you use any specific systems? I also try to bring some practical tips for founders. Like I'm a huge proponent of scheduling things, right? It's like, okay, this is personal time. This is work time. So I don't completely lose a grip, so to speak, on other parts of my life, and I have some grounding. But that's what works for me. Are there tools like that for you?
Yeah. There's a couple, and I love scheduling as well. I think the more in control you are of your time, the calmer you are just in general. But I'll tell you a funny story. So I have two things that really work for me. One is scheduling, and the other one is exercise.
Okay.
And I have a mate that I train with, and we got together on Saturday. We put time aside. I left the house. We went and sat and had a bowl of sushi with our calendars out and said, okay, let's schedule exercise for the next 2 weeks. And Monday was a gym session in the morning. Tuesday was a bike ride in the afternoon. And Wednesday was a swim in the morning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that was the Saturday.
Okay.
We still haven't got together to do some exercise, on both sides, because you can schedule as much as you want and you can be motivated as hard as you want. But at some point, you go through periods where you can do that. For some reason, I don't know what that reason is, but you just get more time to exercise or more time to get some downtime. And then there's just other times like financial year end or Christmas season or whatever it is where you just all of a sudden it just like keeps falling from the sky. Time gets taken and you just can't keep up. And so I think you've also just got to make provision for the fact that even the best plans will change. But on the whole, the stuff that really works for me is scheduling correctly. Time management gives me stress. And then the second one is exercise.
Okay. So do you regular exerciser, what I'm hearing?
Oh, not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. I'm just saying exercise makes me feel better.
Okay.
I just wish I could do more exercise.
Yeah.
And then, there's things like reading and golf. And I adore reading and I adore playing golf. But it's very difficult to schedule the time to do that. And you may want to, but it's very difficult. It's and for anyone that's listening, I hope I'm a bad and a good example of this, because you should take the time. You should be disciplined to invest in yourself, because I know the more you get that right, the better your output is.
Yes.
So algorithmically, it makes no sense not to do it. Genuinely, if I'm at my peak fitness and I'm taking time for myself, that is when I'm at my very best in business.
Okay. And let's say somebody is at the beginning of their journey, a founder, right? And they feel like, they need to dedicate all of their time to their business and their pursuit, and they don't have time for exercise. Would you still advise them to do it?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt. I mean, Tim Ferriss in the 4-Hour Work Week, there's major, absolute benefit to being fit. And that's not just like, I'm not talking about doing a triathlon.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, I'm not in any shape to do a triathlon, but
neither am I.
Go for a 5K walk for 45 minutes is just really good for your blood circulation and your brain. And it compartmentalizes things. And then of course, dopamine fires and you feel good. And the reality is, if you're fit, your productivity goes through the roof.
Yeah.
I've also found that over the years, alcohol plays an enormous part in productivity, or just good diet.
Yeah.
If you're eating fast food because you just don't get the time to go home, and you're ordering it in all the time, if you eat pizza 3 days a week and burgers twice a week, if you're at my age, mid-40s, at some point that is not going to work physiologically for your body.
Yeah.
But if you put good fuel in and you're getting some exercise and you're avoiding anything in excess, you just feel better. And when you feel better, you get up earlier, you can go later, you feel lighter, and then your output or your execution it's remarkable how much more you have.
Yeah, and you don't have to sell me twice on that. I come from experience of being health coach and fitness coach, etc. And if I don't have one night of sleep, one night where sleep is just, all over the place, like I had, 3-4 hours, I feel so not good and my brain just doesn't work. And I'm like, I don't know how people do that, without sleeping well or, but then also exercise and diet, etc. And, we're always that though, not focused, but, dedicated to that was, partially a priority for you, or earlier in life, it was kind of on the sideline. And,
it was a sideline.
Yeah.
It was a sideline. Something I only learned when I was older.
Okay.
I think when your eyesight goes, when you start realizing that your actual body is deteriorating, and you start becoming more aware, right?
Yeah.
If you have a big wedding, when you're 25 and you go to a wedding, Sundays are still blissful because you're going to the beach and you're relaxing.
Yeah.
You go to a wedding at the age of 40, 2 days, if you've got kids, you're paying the price for a couple of days.
Yeah.
So you just become a lot more aware. And I think you're not just aware of how your body reacts. It's how your body reacts when it's under stress.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. It's not just about waking up and going, oh, good, I feel good.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be if you're starting a business of any kind, you're going to be under stress.
Yeah.
And you're going to be under stress for a prolonged period of time. It's almost just managing that stress, so that it becomes a part of being able to cope with that.
Yeah.
As opposed to just a lifestyle thing.
I'm so glad you were saying this, because I also get a lot of questions. How do I deal with stress? I'm like, you can talk to yourself in a positive way all day long, but if you don't sleep, don't eat well, don't exercise, it's going to be super difficult to manage all this increased workload and stress and challenges, etc. I'm so glad that you spoke to that. Do you use any other specific strategies to manage your stress, to manage your workload, besides the exercise and nutrition, etc., lifestyle?
When you're an entrepreneur, and I think this goes through to the journey itself, is you've got to pick up really good people around you in business. I spend more time with people that work for us than I do at home.
Yeah.
Probably not, but you get the point. You spend a lot of time with these people. And I think as an entrepreneur and a business owner, we've absolutely prioritized values in our business.
Yeah.
And why do we do that? We do that because we recognize that business is tough and it's stressful. And you've got to get on with people. So one of the values so we've got 4 values in our business. The first one is you've always got to be direct. So no insinuation and no sarcasm. There's just no time for it. It's a totally inefficient thing. And often it's like a cancer. Once people start rolling their eyes or snarky comments, it grows, creates division. So you always have to be direct. The second one is you have to be honest. And by honest, it doesn't mean don't steal. Of course, don't steal. But to be honest is also to be honest about how you feel and to be honest about what you think would be best for the business, or honest in whatever interaction it is you're having.
Yeah.
The third one is you've got to be prepared in our business. So if we're in a meeting with 10 people, if you're sitting at the table, you need to be prepared for that meeting, because if you're giving out hyperbole or you're giving out exaggerated statements or opinions without having done the work to prepare for that statement, all it does is just confuse the situation and it creates a bit of an organizational mess. Now, all of those things happen every single day. So you need one more value, because you don't learn anything from anyone you only agree with. So you have to debate things. You have to be direct. Now, none of that stuff is easy. If I know for a fact you're wrong, it's not easy for me to say you're wrong. Yeah. And it's not easy for you to take the fact that you're wrong. So the fourth and most important value that we've got in our business is that you have to do everything with kindness. Now, that's not a philosophical thing. It's an actual law stated in our business to make it a pleasure to work there. And so that you can come back again tomorrow and feel safe being direct, feel safe debating, because it's done with kindness. Now, the reason I raise that, you asked me what other tools I have. When we build when we've built our business, we realize as a startup that the likelihood of success is pretty slim. So you're always looking at imminent failure. So what you have to do is get people to come and really believe in your thing, right?
Yeah.
Your mission. In our case, it's to create the most loved, globally recognized brand from South Africa. It's a big, hairy ambition, so you need troops. And you need people going to war with you, working for 15 hours a day. All of them have got stress. All of them have got anxiety. Yeah. The one thing you can do is, as an organization, you can put good practices into the organization so that you're always feeding off positive energy as much as possible from the people that you spend so much time with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you were sitting here having a conversation. Imagine we didn't like each other at all. It would be a tough 40 minutes, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Now imagine spending a 9-hour day with 3 or 4 people that you just can't stand. It's like no one is going to, that just sucks. So we try to create an environment where you actually want to be there.
Yeah, so that's your stress management strategy, people around you being very... And I guess that also goes to your personal circle of connections and people around you right? You probably also curate that well.
The Americans have a really good saying for this. It's rude. So it's an ugly word, but they say the no arsehole rule, which is if you're going to do business, if you're going to partner, if you're going to employ, try and stick to nice people. It's such a silly thing, and what do we mean by nice people? We mean people that understand what kindness is and what empathy is. Mm-hmm. It's so easy for us to take a position on everything and to give an opinion and take a position, you're right or wrong. Good people understand that they need to listen a little bit more than they speak, that you should probably ask a few questions before you give an opinion. And if you get people that do that quite naturally, and you don't have to teach them, and I like the word empathy, if they've got natural empathy, then invariably you're going to have a good culture. Mm-hmm. And that's in partnerships as well. If you've got somebody that is out to, don't get me wrong, I'm competitive as hell, right? So I want to win. But if you've got somebody that wants to win a conversation every time they go into it, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, especially in personal relationship. That's. Can I also ask you one question about culture specifically? Because obviously any founder, every entrepreneur will be spending a lot of time in their company, the company that they're building. Do you have any specific tools, company-wise, team-wise, to create that culture that gives energy instead of stressing people out?
Yeah, it's a function of leadership, right? So you can't. I'm sort of captain culture at Veldskoen, and just to backtrack a little bit, when I'd worked in this environment of leadership with Paul for a while, and then I had these failed businesses, and Ross and I come up with Veldskoen. We know it's a good idea, and we had people around, but I was a hesitant leader. Leadership is a job of service in my brain. And I just wanted to make sure that if we're going to spend our time doing it, it would have to be in a happy environment. So I actually wrote an email to our shareholders and said the only way that I would, at that point, it was early on, take a leadership role within the business is if it was going to be a happy business, and I made the rules. Mm-hmm. And we said, no bickering, no this, and I stated them out front. And I said, just so you know, I will have a problem with all of that. Mm-hmm. From here on in. So it starts at the top, and you've got to share it with your management team. And then when you're hiring or any opportunity that you get to speak to your staff, and I don't have to do it anymore. Now our team does it to each other. Now, if there's a team of marketing, a marketing team, and there's a new entrant into that team, this team has been together for so long, they understand that it actually works. They'll self-enforce that. Mm-hmm. So it has to become organic, and people have to buy into it. And I've made this speech many, many times. I say and I mean this. I would probably, I don't want to dismiss anyone in a business. Nobody wants to do that. Mm-hmm. And I'd sooner dismiss somebody for messing with our culture than I would for theft.
Yeah.
Theft, you took a sandwich. Not cool. Don't do it.
What about the shoe?
And I question you, whatever. The problem with culture is worse. Yeah. Because that can bring the entire thing down for everybody. And so that is the biggest danger. So to answer your question, the tools for instilling good culture, long, repetitive, consistent communication of what your values are.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to constantly remind everyone that these are the values and you've got to live them.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot slip outside of it. And if you do slip outside of it, because everybody's human, we all make mistakes, you have a bad day, you don't act in a kind way, own it.
Mm-hmm.
Own it right then and there. Recognize it. Be brave enough to tell someone when they're on the outside of the value chain. Say it. Be direct. And then take it one step at a time from there.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing this. Again, culture, people, building, good companies is very important for building a great company. And so I think that will help a lot of founders, entrepreneurs to start there when they start hiring people and building something bigger. Besides that, creating good social circle at work and at home, are there any stress management strategies that you can think of? Also, besides obviously taking care of yourself, you do a lot. So many.
The stress management stuff. I think if you had to line up 50 entrepreneurs today and walk them in and said, what are your tools for stress management? I suspect we're all doing some very similar things.
Mm-hmm.
So besides the exercise and the family and all that sort of stuff, I think we're all listening to loads of podcasts. Yeah. I think we're all probably taking in far too much short format content on Instagram about how to get your life in order.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're probably all reading Tim Ferriss. We're listening to Joe Rogan, and I think if you lined us all up, those sets of tools would be quite familiar to everybody that would be in the room, but they are useful. So meditation, for example, I don't meditate in the way that I've learned about it through Tim Ferriss or Rogan or whatever, but I meditate going for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
And but there's probably people listening going, that's not real, it's not the real thing, but it's I don't know, I just find it's very personal. Some stuff works for you, some stuff doesn't. I know people that really need white noise when they go to bed, and that makes a huge difference. I don't, so there's just, I think it's very personal, but the trick is to educate yourself as hard as you can and try as many things as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they'll work, sometimes they don't. And if it works for you consistently over a period of time, then stick to it.
Yeah.
Really, really do stick to it.
Yeah. Use the stuff that works and use it often. But also what I'm hearing is, what I also advise to a lot of your founders, entrepreneurs who are going through stuff, curate your social media and the content that you consume. Like I can tell you, hundreds, thousands of times that the moment when I fell down and then I knew the people who to listen to that always make me feel good, like Tim Ferriss.
Yeah.
Right now I'm listening to Alex Hormozy, or Sarah Blakely is also, a huge example for me. You listen to the right people and you're like, that makes sense. That makes me feel better. And that all that matters at the moment.
I think you also say a good thing about like switching off the stuff that doesn't make you feel good.
Yes, exactly. Like my social media, if I or watch something, hear something that makes me feel worse about any aspect of my life
Switch
or myself. Exactly.
Yeah.
So powerful. Yeah. Thank you for also mentioning that.
Yeah. I also think distraction causes an enormous amount of anxiety with entrepreneurs. So when you're distracted, let's say I've got a big task to do today, and I find myself for 15 minutes sitting somewhere scrolling through, doom scrolling through Instagram. I think subconsciously all you're doing is shortening the amount of time that you've got to do something and you've got to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that distraction adds anxiety. Identify it early. I did a thing, I can't remember when I did it, but I used to play a lot of backgammon on my phone or chess.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, oh, I'm playing a strategy game or I'm playing like I'm reading or whatever. At some point it becomes a distraction and it's easy to convince yourself it's not. It's easy to say, oh no, hang on a second. This is my time. I've got 20 minutes to myself. I'm going to, do this or do that. Just take stock of whether it's a distraction or not. And it's not because a distraction is necessarily bad. Sometimes distractions can be great, but it could be causing you anxiety subconsciously.
You know what you made me think of? If we're distracting ourselves to not do the thing, we need we know we need to do, that just going to accumulate that anxiety. And 100%. The only way out is addressing that thing.
Is the doing thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Go for a run,
Or like if, for example, I'm worried about, sales or not, having certain contracts this month, then go and take care of that. That actually brings me peace, taking care of the problem instead of trying to distract myself.
I'll admit something on your podcast today. I've been struggling to sleep for about a week, and we've been going through financial year end in the business, which is a big deal, and it's tough. And we've just taken this huge thing on board in the States, and we've had a critical member of staff resign. So it's been a really tough couple of weeks, and I've had next to no time to myself. So it's been one of those phases where it's been really difficult, including not being able to exercise and all the rest of it. And I've been struggling. And then last night, and the thing that's been giving me the most anxiety is that I've been in meetings, not like literally back to back every single minute of the day. And I haven't been getting to my inbox, and I haven't been getting to my administrative stuff that just has to get done. You can't ignore it.
Yeah.
What sucks about email is there's a quantitative amount, right? Like you can see you've got 480 emails. So yesterday, so not this morning, I set my alarm for 3 a.m. Because we take the kids to bed. They go to bed at about 8. I've tried and fall asleep by 9. Set my alarm for 3 so I can catch up on everything before they wake up from 5 o'clock. It didn't happen because I was so tired I just couldn't get up. And then another day has now passed. So this morning, I went to bed last night at about 9. I woke up at 2 a.m. There's no way I'm sleeping anymore. You know when that happens, when you just get up and you're just like, there's no way I'm not going to sleep. Grabbed baby, went downstairs, put on the Godfather 2 in the background, no sound, banged out 360 emails from 2 till 5 over 3 hours. I had a hyper focused moment. Baby was asleep, gave baby to Freya as I left, and I went for a bike ride with John. And the stress level went from a 10 over the last 3 weeks to a 2. I'm exhausted. Yeah. I'm tired, obviously, but the stress has. I feel light, and I think that talks to that getting it done part. We all have that thing. And scheduling is a big one. Am I going to book that meeting? Am I going to do it? It's like once you've booked it, you just feel lighter. Yeah. And I think it's that getting it done thing. And I spoke about it earlier about always being aware of the fact that the more you put in, the more you get out. Yeah. But it's also the more you put in, the more light you feel to be creative and you can build. Yeah. Yeah. It's an odd one. So you have to find that balance because you just can't always be doing that. But it's so amazing how when you just have a huge moment and you go, okay, cool, I'm going to do this now, and you get it done and you just feel so much lighter afterwards. Yeah. It's a wonderful feeling.
I actually read quite a few pieces of research of how having unresolved things on our mind, that would causes tension in our brain because we hold it in working memory and there is some processes happening and you're going to feel that stress and tension until you make a decision and you resolve that thing in some way. But it doesn't have to mean that you're going to go through all of the emails. The research says if you put it on your calendar, like that block of time, and you put it, it is like, okay, that's going to get done.
I've got a plan.
Yeah, exactly. That's all your brain kind of cares about, that is going to be taken care of.
And what's nuts about this whole thing is that these things are physiological.
Yeah, it changes you.
It's not, it's something fires in your brain that just relaxes one part of it, and there's a synapses piece that works, and you just feel better.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing this story. And it also seems to be, from research, a great way to improve your sleep. Like if you have a lot of things on your mind, put them in your calendar, in your planner, somewhere outside of your head. And they also recommend writing all the things down that you keep in your mind, and that will help you to fall asleep much faster. And usually the more detail you write about what's on your mind, the faster you fall asleep. So yeah, thank you for sharing this. Just reminds me of that. A couple of other things that I wanted to talk to you of based on the question that I got from founders, entrepreneurs, what they struggle with. Number one is staying motivated and staying positive, especially when you don't see a lot of progress, especially when you don't get a lot of wins. Do you have any strategies around that? Any tools that might help founders to stay more motivated, to stay more positive while doing the hard thing?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it relates to, I think, a little bit to Veldskoen, so I may not be the best person to ask.
Who is the best person?
The reason I may not be is because we're super motivated almost all the time on Veldskoen. I'm talking purely business, right? Because we may not have wins, but we've got a very defined mission. And our business actually does make us happy.
Yeah.
It's a lovely product. It makes people smile. It puts us in rooms with people that want to spend time with us. It's global. So it's interesting. There's a innate, we're just genuinely in love with our business. And it's not at all difficult for us to motivate ourselves to come to the office in the morning or to send emails at 2:30 in the morning because we love our business. And I think my advice to founders around motivation is we'll all have bad days, but I can't remember who wrote about it. Just make sure that you're not trying to motivate yourself in a situation that's unsavable.
What do you mean?
What I mean by that is, if you're in a business that that's making you unhappy or that you don't like, figure out what it is you're actually doing. Are you building something that makes you happy, or is it something that you want to get a big paycheck at the end of the day, or are you motivated by, find out what that motivation is. Because I think it's going to be harder to motivate yourself in an environment where you're simply not happy.
Yeah.
That's, I think, is maybe, especially if it happens over a longer period of time. I don't wake up coming to work every day going, wow, I'm super motivated. But it's because we have a mission that we all understand and that we love. There's days where I feel lazy and flat, but not unmotivated. It's I think the motivation part is part of if you're doing something of value to your being, to your soul. I'm and I know Ross feels exactly the same way. We're building Veldskoen not to have a big business. We're building Veldskoen because it makes other people's lives better.
Yeah.
And that's great. And it makes me feel very happy. And I can push as hard as I can on that. But if I was building it just so that I could get some form of social status or some kind of financial return, I'm not sure. I don't know if that's a great motivator for me. It might be for others, but as long as you understand what your motivation is, and if that motivation makes you happy, I think that will go a long way to helping you get out of it when you're not motivated.
Yeah. It first reminds me of this quote by Nietzsche that I go back again and again and again. Someone who has a strong enough why will bear almost any how. And what I learned in my life, and founders, entrepreneurs I spoke with who have this almost internal motivation, that drive, they all understand why they're doing that. And that why is connected to something really deeply meaningful to them. And all the entrepreneurs I found who are just burning out and almost having to push themselves just didn't make that connection to what's in it for them, what's their why, what's the mission, right, that they care about. I found this.
I think that is a fabulously profound thing to say, and I'm grateful that you've said it, because we talk about our battery. I've got Ross and myself have an endless battery for this business. It's not going to go flat. We love it. I adore it. I love the people we work with. I love the work we do. I love the output that comes. I love the happiness that it creates. I love I love the success. Of course I do.
Yeah.
And it's entirely grounded in the why. Now, if I may, I'll make a comment, because we see a lot of entrepreneurs, and we see a lot of new businesses, and we see a lot of startups, because we're kind of one of those startups that is kicked on in Cape Town or in South Africa. And so we have a lot of people asking us this a lot of the time. And I see every now and then entrepreneurs being entrepreneurs for the sake of being entrepreneurs. And it's almost become a genre. It's like become you're either a lawyer or a doctor or an entrepreneur. And somehow an entrepreneur goes from one thing to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing, to the next thing. And I think I may be entrepreneurial and I might be an entrepreneur, but I'm really a shoe salesman. You see my point?
Yeah.
I'm grounded in what I'm actually doing, which is selling a product that's made here globally. That's what I do.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to say that makes me entrepreneurial, I totally get it. But I'm not really an entrepreneur. I display those characteristics. And yes, I do other businesses, stuff that we love, but I'm not an entrepreneur that is a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, for it.
And I think that might add to that issue, where it's like, what am I really?
Yeah.
Because if you don't if you don't have that why, it's a tough one.
And did you always have this why, or did you discover it? Did it come to you for this specific for Veldskoen?
We got so lucky, okay, and our why was simple. But okay, so it comes back to the story. Remember, I come from failed exhibitions and art dealing and blah, blah, blah. Ross comes from very, very close to failure building. But he was a building guy.
Yeah.
We have a conversation, an argument. We weren't looking to start a business together. We've been friends since we were young, but we weren't, in this moment, we're not looking to start anything. We just so happened to be at the same time be desperate, both of us, young families, young kids. And in that moment where we got those Photoshop photographs of Veldskoen shoes on our phones, bang, lightning goes off, and we actually start a business. In the moment of desperation, and we were desperate, we built Veldskoen because it gave us hope. It made us feel good to talk about it to each other. It felt like it could be the thing that makes this other terrible thing better.
Yeah.
And so we had it baked in. It was giving us joy from day one. It made us feel safer. It made us feel hopeful.
Yeah.
And that why pulled through the cloud of desperation. And I'm so grateful that we were desperate, because I'm not sure we would have built it if we weren't. I'm not sure if Veldskoen would be what it is today if we were both highly successful and came up with a really good idea. I think Veldskoen, by its very nature, was born out of this crazy space that we were in, and all of its best parts are because of that. And we knew early on that it was supposed to take care of us and our nearest, and it felt we were the custodians of this thing, not the owners.
Yeah, but
this thing was bigger than us. It belonged to South Africa. It belonged to all of us, but it was going to look after us.
Yeah.
And that why was baked in from ground zero, day one.
Yeah, it's almost like this idea found you, and you gave it your full attention and commitment.
And it deserved it.
Yeah. And in return, it helped you to get through this journey to success.
Exactly right.
It is. And I guess, the last question before we wrap up, and, trying to be mindful of your time as well. A lot of entrepreneurs, founders, tell me that they struggle with focus and with commitment. And they're like, there are so many things I want to do, but how do I focus on that, one thing? And that kind of speaks back to the idea of, feeling your why, your purpose, your mission, and also not being there in it for being an entrepreneur, but being in it to actually built something meaningful, some vision, something, right? And how can you not focus then if you have this clarity, right?
Focus is.
So did you have a struggle with focus? Did you want to jump
God.
to?
I think there were moments where we put Veldskoen in a position of weakness because of our lack of focus.
Okay.
It's the truth.
How did that happen? What happened?
You score a win, right? Let's say you start selling in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
You know that a box of shoes costs X. You can get it there for Y. You can sell it at a margin. The next thing that you go is, what else can I put in that box?
Mm-hmm.
What else can I do? So you start a coffee business, thinking I'm going to use the same methodology. I'm going to create an online brand. I'm going to do this. And then you go, okay, cool. And wait, there's another thing I can do. Maybe I can do e-bikes. Maybe I can do something else. Mm-hmm. And Ross and I did that. Mm-hmm. We went down that rabbit hole. You think you've got one horse that's running so hard and winning that it was you alone that could get the horse to run quickly.
Yeah.
So you put like another 20 horses in the race. And what you forget is that horse needs attention and love and care. And it's probably the only one that'll cross the finish line, let alone win.
Yeah.
So focus, you have to bring it back. I'm not saying don't have fun and have other projects outside of it, but you've got to give that big thing the big focus. And that's a lesson that Ross and I learned not too long ago. Mm-hmm. And I would say to you maybe 15 months ago, where we had to just take tough decisions and anything that was distracting from our focus. So actually step one is to figure out what the focus should be. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it can't be a big it can't just be, I'm going to focus on Veldskoen. It should actually be, you know something, Veldskoen is the big thing. We're going to focus on this, but within that focus, we're going to focus on building the revenue. Mm-hmm. Or we're going to focus on
one thing
reducing
at a time,
our costs, right? So but that's the thing.
Yeah.
And then you've got to take stock of anything that's distracting you. Mm-hmm. Time-wise, mind space-wise, and you've got to be ruthless. Mm-hmm. And you can't go, okay, let's just put it off for 6 months. Mm-hmm. You've got to make decisions. And you've got to go, is this good for me? Is this good for the business? Does it deserve the attention it gets from me as it relates to me taking away attention from Veldskoen? Mm-hmm. And that process took us a long time to get to, but when we got there, we were ruthless. Mm-hmm. We started to zero in on it. And I can tell you that the effect that has had on the business has been tremendous. Mm-hmm. So I highly recommend to anyone that's listening, figure out what your focus should be, because the impact it will have in its development is profound.
I always give people this imagery about focus, how you probably saw it many times. You have this magnifying glass and sun rays going through that. And on the other side, you have a piece of paper or wood and a fire starting, right? But that obviously doesn't happen if you don't have that focusing glass, and the rays just go all over the place and nobody really notices that. Yeah. And it's kind of like what happens to us, to our businesses, when we have our resources all over the place. Nobody really notices what we even do because the impact is so little. Yeah. And unfocused.
There's literally no fire.
Yes.
And I think that, it's a trap.
Thank you for saying that. And because I also felt like your journey was really focused, but I was not inside the business, so obviously I didn't know what was happening. And so thank you for mentioning that you also had this ideas about different things, and probably you tried, right? You said 15 months ago something happened.
Yeah.
And,
no, I mean, we started, Russ and I thought we could start an e-bike company.
Okay.
It took attention, took work, and then it failed. And you kind of like go in every day and you're like, maybe I can make this work, maybe I can. Mm-hmm. And you put work in and you just eventually realize no. Mm-hmm. So now we've got 4 prototype e-bikes that look pretty cool at our Veldskoen offices, and that's what I've got to show for it.
Oh, another failure that you learned from.
Love it.
And and I would argue that all of the failures are actually very valuable because they teach us the lesson that we need to learn to make the thing that we need to make a success succeed, right? They build it. It's like we all have dreams, and I think founders and entrepreneurs have this almost talent to see things that are not yet there, But the thing is, we are not good enough to even have that. And so we need to develop and learn a lot of stuff. And that's what failures do. They teach us lessons and give us skills so we can then match one day our vision.
Failure is a strategy within our business. So we're very lucky in that we're in a bunch of countries, right? But we've got three really big focuses: the US, the UK, and South Africa, soon to be Australia. And within our marketing department, we're going through an exercise right now where we're trying a bunch of stuff relating directly to shoes, right? So like shoe X, let's work on this particular product. Let's figure out like how to market it, meta, mailers, blah, blah, what content, what voice are we using, what narrative are we using, what photography are we using, all that rest of it. And we constantly talk about that. We're actually not looking for wins. We're actually looking for failures.
Yeah.
Because we think we know. You often have this like subjective version of going, I think this shoe would look really great in this market, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it's only until it fails that you really know it's not.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, if you don't identify the failures, they just stay distractions.
Yeah.
So we're actually now trying to get so zeroed in on it. And we keep speaking about it, guys. Like the wins are great.
Yeah.
Like, and we'll take them. Don't get me wrong. But what we're really interested in was what's not working.
Yeah. So
and you can frame it as what's not working, or you can frame it as a failure.
Yeah.
We don't care. All we know is that it gives the space for everyone to try stuff without the fear of criticism or the fear of being admonished.
Yeah.
We're trying to create the culture of like, listen, we're not going to get this right. We're trying to build something that's crazy, and we're never going to get it right first time. Let's just put that on the table.
Yeah.
And try and get as many things off the table that don't work.
Yeah. So those things that don't work guide you towards the thing that will work eventually.
Just stop doing them.
Yeah.
And then you'll have less stuff that on the table.
Yeah.
And you'll have more stuff that works that doesn't.
Yeah. Thank you for also saying this, because there is a lot of conversation happening around how to navigate failure. And there are actually a couple of books written on that in entrepreneurial environment, you should treat all of these things as experiments, as a scientist would do. You have a hypothesis, and then you're just trying a bunch of things, and most of them will not work, but they will help you to get to the things that does work.
If you had to ask me today to list the stuff that has worked in Veldskoen versus the stuff that hasn't worked in Veldskoen, one would be a little bag of marbles, and the other one would be a beach full of sand. Which one do you think is the pile?
Yeah, the failures are the bigger.
It's the beach.
Yes, the beach.
Okay. The little bag of marbles is the stuff that went right.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of it. I said it earlier, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. This thing it is so difficult. There is nothing that prepares you for how hard this thing is.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking my thing. I'm just talking about building a business.
Yeah.
Building a business is hard as hell, man.
Yeah.
So get ready to fail.
Yes. And, on that note, I think we will wrap up. And the last question I want to ask you is a parting thought or note for a driven, purposeful entrepreneur who is not always confident in themselves. Like, what would you recommend them to do, think about, remember to last long enough to succeed?
I'm going to take one step. I'll say two things. Before you last long enough to succeed, for the entrepreneur that doesn't have the confidence to do the thing they want to do, start. Mm-hmm. Ross and I were the most hesitant entrepreneurs. It started in an argument, but in 5 hours in a car journey, we registered a company, made a decision to work and operate in a business, in a market, in a speciality that we had not only not known, we had no idea. I never even bought anything online at that time. I'd never even worn a pair of Veldskoen in my life. Okay. Ross, neither. We knew nothing about fashion, retail, etc. But we knew a good idea. But the secret wasn't getting a good idea. The secret was acting on the good idea. So the step one is start. Mm-hmm. If you're unsure, go. Mm-hmm. But feel totally comfortable with failure and constantly take stock of where you're going. And if you love what you do, it will be a success. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean it'll be a huge success, but it will be a success. in some way or shape. Even if it's a terrible failure, that could also be a success. So now, how do you carry on? I think Ross gave me the best advice for a business that I've ever heard. And it's just the very simple thing: survival equals growth.
Survival equals growth.
Survival equals growth. The longer you stay in the game, the likelihood is you're going to grow the business. And it doesn't matter if you sell one pair of shoes today and one tomorrow. Stay in the game. Stay in the game. Keep ticking away. Small wins, but survival equals growth over a period of time. Hang in there. Grow within reason. You know, I hate this notion of a loss-making unicorn. I think it's the most ridiculous thing. And of course, people will be critical of that statement. But I think what's more important for young business owners or new business owners, 40-odd business owners, is to build a going concern. Build a going concern first, something that can pay for itself and pay you. I think that should be step one. Don't worry about listing on the JSE.
I don't even know what it is.
On the NASDAQ, on the stock exchange. Just build a going concern. If you build a going concern, you'll be feeding people. They'll be working for you. You'll be looking after yourself. You'll have the stability of a business that actually works. Step one, build something that actually works.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for this conversation and this wisdom. I've learned so much, and I'm going to be re-listening to our conversation, many, many times. So thank you. And the last part, where do you want people to go to learn more about Veldskoen and you? Where do you want people to get in touch, follow you, any social media? Please do mention.
Guys, Veldskoen.com. That's where you go globally. Veldskoen.com. Learn about our shoes there. Follow us on our socials. I'm not nearly active enough on social media other than LinkedIn. Have a look there. We share some thoughts on mental health, our own journey. We share thoughts on building businesses, how to fail. We don't profess to be any smarter than anyone else, so take it with a pinch of salt. But the one thing I will say, and please reach out to us on LinkedIn, if there's anything we can do to help other businesses or entrepreneurs out there that may be of value to them, get in touch directly. My email address, and I always give it out publicly, is nick@veldskoen.com. I may not be able to respond in one day. It'll take me some time, but we keep saying if we're going to be successful in this country, we're going to have to help each other. And I would rather no one pay expensive school fees or learning fees. If there's a solution out there that we have discovered that we can share, we would like to do that. And the only thing stopping anyone listening from doing that is just not doing anything about it. The offer is there. We should all get together, work as hard as possible to make South African businesses a success, because that will move the needle for everyone.
Forward, Thank you so much, Nick. Thank you for this generous offer and the whole conversation. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Brilliant.